What were you doing in December 1994? The person we're about to was talked to was preparing for quite the ride.
You speak, we listen. Conversations connecting people. This is the Chuck Williams Show.
Welcome back to this edition of the Chuck Williams Show. Our guest today is Mimi Woodson. Mimi is a counselor, Columbus City Councilor, District 7. Mimi, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a lot of reflection. Mimi right now is in the twilight of her council career. She is finishing up 28 years on city council, did not seek re-election, and will be leaving the office on December 31st. So what you thinking about?
Nervous. 28 years is a long time, but I look forward to my new journey in life.
And, life's about journeys, and I want to go back real quick to December 1994. You had just been elected to Columbus City Council. You were the very first person of Hispanic descent to be elected to a public office in the state of Georgia. And you're sitting there in December of 1994. What were you doing?
Oh, well, this is funny. The first very shock was when I was coming out of the elevator on election day, and my daughter, the elevator door is open, and my daughter, she jumps on me and she says, "Mom, you did it." And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Oh, hell, what do I do now?"
You were not the first politician to think that. I can assure you that. And then for the next 28 years, you did it, but you did it in your own very distinctive style. You were always Mimi Woodson, born in Puerto Rico, raised in New York, Chicago, Milwaukee, Army career. You were never not that Mimi Woodson, were you?
No. My mom always used to tell us when we were growing up, remember who you are and where you came from, because you never know if you have to go back. So I continue to try to stay as humble as possible.
Where did you come from in Puerto Rico?
A little town called Manatí. And my dad was in the Korean War, and after he got out of the Korean War,
fought for the U.S. Army, right?
Yes. And after that, they moved to New York, and my dad was actually a promoter. He used to bring Latin music to the United States, different places. And that's how we got to the United States, because of my dad and his work.
He promoted. Name me some of the acts he promoted.
Yeah.
That would have been back in the 50s, right?
Oh yeah, he did like Celia Cruz, Héctor Lavoe, Gran Combo, Gallito Manatí. Those were old artists. And what's so funny, Chuck, because I was in that environment, but I really didn't understand it. So when they would come over the house, because in the old days, what they do is they didn't stay in hotels. They stayed with family and people and stuff. My mom used to always cook for them. When I used to look at them like, oh, well, somebody else sleeping in my room. I didn't pay no attention to it. And as I got older and I started paying more attention, I would say to myself, man, I lost all those opportunities. I know them when they started, and look at them. But back then, it didn't mean anything to me.
What venues were they playing in New York at the time? Do you remember that?
No, there were different places, different hotels, different small venues, big venues, because they were just like starting off, getting on themselves on the feet. And my dad was just promoting. I remember that we would go from one city to another city. When he booked them, we went to different cities. It wasn't there. And I was Daddy's little girl, so I hanged out quite a bit with Daddy.
What countries were they coming from? Or were they coming from Puerto Rico, Caribbean?
Yeah, they came from different Caribbean countries. They were not all there. Some were even local. Some were like from New York itself, Chicago, California. They were from all over. Whatever contract he could get, he brought it to whatever community was asking for it.
I was more of a country music guy. That probably doesn't surprise you at all. But my introduction to Latin music was Gloria Estefan, the Miami Sound Machine. I mean, I remember liking the beat, and that was about the time I was in college, and I always thought that was that was the first time I really was aware of the kind of culture of Latin music. And I mean, probably a lot of people fall in the same category with me with Gloria Estefan and the Sound Machine, right?
Yes, quite a bit.
Um, so y'all lived in New York, Milwaukee, and
Mhm.
Chicago. Did you ever go home to Puerto Rico? And what do you remember about going back to Puerto Rico?
Oh yes, we would go back just about every year, sometimes every 2 years. And in the summertime, my parents made sure that my brother and I visit for the summer at least 2 or 3 weeks so that we continue in our culture. But what I remember the most is my grandfather, may he rest in peace. I used to love it because my family would tease me. They would say, "Oh, here comes the gringa," because they would say my Spanish is kind of broken because the way we were brought up. But my grandfather would always take me by my hand and he would tell me, "We're going in the yard." And we didn't go in the yard. We went to eat ice cream, him and I. He would always take me into town to have ice cream, and he would tell people, "Oh, this is my gringa granddaughter," and I
Gringa
loved
meaning
it.
United States, right?
Yes, yes. And
Wow.
I used to love it because he just gave me all that attention. I was his little girl for that moment.
You know, there's such a special relationship. I mean, Puerto Rico is not a state, but it's a U.S. territory.
Correct.
And there's such a special relationship between Puerto Ricans and the U.S. Army. If you look, I
Hmm.
mean, you said your dad was in the Army, you were in the Army. Um, uh,
My brother,
your brother.
my
I mean,
niece.
you see folks in Columbus. Cesar comes to mind who
Hmm.
are Puerto Rican, but they were U.S. Army. What is it about the military and Puerto Ricans?
I think it's the sense of wanting to see America, the other side, the American dream. I believe that it is to show that we can also contribute to this country. And I think we've done a good job, but we haven't done a good job in marketing it. I followed in my dad's footsteps because my dad was I was daddy's little girl. And I was kind of I was shy and quiet in the public, but at home, I was a very interesting little child. Daddy, what you doing? What you doing?
So you asked a
When
lot
I
of
do that,
questions.
oh yeah, yeah. And he would go fix cars because he's a man of all trades. He would go fix cars. I would get on the car. I didn't know what I was doing, Chuck, but I would put oil on my face and come up and tell my mom I was helping her. I
Uh,
was working with my dad. We changed that engine. And I didn't do nothing, but it was just a fact. When I saw and learned, when I learned about all my dad's sacrifice to come to the United States to give our family an opportunity, you know, and I seen their struggles. I admired that. I would get mad at him a lot too because when I was coming up, he was very traditional. When we were in the house, we only spoke Spanish. We went through those rules. When we leave the house, it was just we only spoke English, and we did that. But he was very strict. For my high school prom, I had to take my brother as my date. How do you like going to the prom with your brother? That was not.
that doesn't sound like fun.
No, it wasn't. But I was devious. We changed partners. And when we went home, we changed partners again. So my dad, after many years ago, he found out because we were having a serious conversation, and I said, "Dad, I got a confession," and he was, "You? What happened?" I said, "Don't be mad, but remember when, Chuck? My mom even had a different dress made for me." Because the dress my dad had for me, it was like a turtleneck, long sleeve, and we're in the summer. And I had my mother back then, it was called halters. I don't know,
Uh,
today, where you had your back out. And my mom had a lady make another dress for me. So, and this is when the hotels first started coming out. Actually, the Holiday Inn. And when I got to the garage, I went to the bathroom. I changed my clothes. My brother changed partners, and we went to the prom. But
What-
we took pictures together. So
What
my
city
kids-
was that in?
In Milwaukee.
In Milwaukee?
And my dad never knew when I told him the story. He said, "But when you came home, you went with this. You came home with the same dress." I said, "That was the deal, Dad." So good memories.
You know, one of the things that has always struck me about the people from Puerto Rico that I know, family is the most important thing. You're talking about your granddad, your dad, you're talking about your brother, your mom. Where does this emphasis and value on family come from?
I think it's our ancestors and generations before us who has empowered us that family is the key to success. Even if you have your differences of opinion and you have your fights, you always need to come back to family because family would always be there for you. And in the Latino Puerto Rican culture, family is very important to us. Like if you and I were very good friends, I might tell somebody, "Oh, this is my cousin, this is my uncle," because of the relationship we built.
So it goes back to family.
It's always back to family. You can have disagreements, you can be mad at you, but at the end of the day, you're back to family, and the reunion of family is very important. Like for me being like I was always the one that was traveling, always gone in my family. But my family, I have aunts and uncles and even cousins today that when I would do an accomplishment or I was celebrating my daughter's quinceañera, for example, family came from all over. Like
What's a quinceañera?
a quinceañera is when a young lady turns 15. It's supposed to represent her still being a virgin, um, being introduced to society as a young lady.
So it's like
kinda-
it's like not cotillion. What is the? I just went brain dead.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah,
I can't say it either right now.
Yeah, but it's
the
a
same.
coming out.
It's a coming out, yeah. And it's a big deal because of the fact that it's such a beautiful ceremony. There's a ceremony of changing of shoes, putting on jewelry, getting a tiara, having flowers given to you from a young man, supposedly for the first time in your life. It's a very beautiful, sacred ceremony.
And that daughter now is much older and has made you a grandmother, right?
Yes.
How many
Two-
grandchildren?
I have two grandchildren from her, and I have 3 from my son, and 1 on the way.
What's your grandmother name?
Andrea, like my daughter, and my other one, her name was Maria.
So what do you go by?
I go
They
as
call
a
you-
grandmother.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
misunderstood you.
yeah.
As a grandma, it's called abuela. But my grandkids, some call me abuelita, and some call me ita. Like my son's kids, they say abuelita, and my daughter's kids, they like to cut it short. They say ita
So what
until
is
they get mad at me.
what do they mean in English?
It is grandmother,
Okay,
and it's short like granny.
Okay,
You
so
know,
just
like
like
that.
I would call my grandmother Granny or something.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. Ita is like granny. Abuelita is grandma.
but you have a grandmother name in the U.S. For Mimi is a name that a lot of families,
Yes.
including ours, use for a grandmother
Yes.
name. So let's go back to 1995 to 1994 when you saw the election. You were running a candy store in South Columbus. Where was the candy store?
Yes, it was called Kids and Things, and it was off South Lumpkin Road on Hendrick Street, right in the corner.
So what kind of candy did you have in your store?
Oh
Mimi?
my God, we had the old days Mary Jane, lollipops, bubble gum, bottle candy with those plastic like wax with the juice
Yeah,
inside. All kinds of different types of candy. But what was unique about the candy store, Chuck, was that was a promise I made to God. My husband had gone to Desert Storm, and he was in a bad position. And I prayed to God that if he would bring them safe, I would do something for children. And the candy store was it. What was unique about the candy store was because we sell candy at a penny to $1. And we didn't charge the kids the taxes. We paid the taxes for them. And then we
Doesn't sound like
invited-
you were a very good candy business person.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. And we would have like dances in the weekend for them. We would clean up the community.
So it was community center. It was almost like a boys and girls club.
You know, now that you mention it, yeah. Now that you mention, I never looked at it that way, but yes.
You know, and that was about the time that Oakland Park was starting to change, to become a little more investment property rental and a little less owner occupied. You know, I mean, that seesaw was starting to go the other way from owner occupied. If you don't know Oakland Park, and it sits off South Lumpkin Road back toward the river, what do people in this town that have probably never driven through Oakland Park, they may see stuff on the news about a murder or homicide there, but what do you know about Oakland Park that you wish the rest of Columbus knew about your neighborhood?
It's a very beautiful neighborhood. Excuse me. There's a lot of beautiful trees that does the marking of it. The people are very humble and sweet. I had an opportunity when I bought my house because the realtor would take me to North Columbus all the time. And my husband was driving around and he found Oakland Park and he found my home. And he said to me, Mimi, let's go check out this neighborhood. It looks quaint, quiet. People, they take care of their lawns. There's a lot of trees, flowers. It will make you feel like you're almost at home. And at first I was like, okay, let's go. And then I heard some of the negatives and I said to him, Woodson, I don't know. And he said, let's just go. Let's just go. And the moment I went down my street, I fell in love with Oakland Park. And Oakland Park is beautiful. It has its troubles like every neighborhood, some areas, but overall, it's a beautiful community. It's very united. I don't know. I would never leave it. I never would.
You know, if you don't know a community and you go in and you have to trust a realtor to help you find a place to live, realtors play an oversized role sometimes in your perception of the community you're going into, don't they?
Oh, yes, they do, because our realtor was really upset that we wanted to see my home. They wanted us to go, other places because we had saved up enough money to give a decent down payment, to our home. So they kept pushing us north, but we fell in. And this is a funny story. The house was under contract, and my daughter walks in the house. We went to see it anyway. My daughter walks in the house, and the lady was there, and
The owner?
The owner was there, and my daughter walks in, and she said, "Mom, this is gonna be my new house." And we all were like in shock, little girl. This is not. We're just looking. And she fell in love with the house. And we went upstairs and she even picked up her room. And I had to tell her, and I told her in front of the lady, I said, Andrea, this isn't our home. We're just looking at different houses and we like this house. And she was like, this is my house. I said, okay. And we just left. And a couple of days later, we got a phone call saying, are you interested in the house? And the lady had, changed. She dropped the other contract just because of my daughter. And so that house has, so much value.
That's a God thing, isn't it?
Yes. So that house is very, very, my kids have tried to get me to move other places as they travel. My family, especially now that I retire, and I tell them I can't. I'm home. To me, this is home.
And you've been in that house for 30 years now, right?
Yes.
The one thing about Oakland Park, and I think Oakland Park has the most beautiful tree canopy of any neighborhood,
Yes.
maybe overlooked to some degree, but downtown, yeah, but Oakland Park's tree canopy is so deliberate. It's so beautiful, and those oaks are just majestic. And in Oakland Park, from people who don't know this, Oakland Park is a neighborhood right off the gates of Fort Benning that is on a grid. The streets are straight as an arrow, and it's a gridded neighborhood. It's probably a mile long, but it sprang up in the mid-'60s when Fort Benning was ramping up for Vietnam, and all those people had to have somewhere to live, and all of a sudden builders were building houses just left and right in Oakland Park, and it is a beautiful and historic neighborhood.
Yes, it is. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a place where, like you said, God put me in, and I love it, and I don't see myself going anywhere. I just tell my kids, you come visit me. I tell my family, you come visit me. I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I love it. I love my home.
So you're running a candy store, living in your dream house in Oakland Park, and you get a visit from John Allen, a judge, Red McDaniel, a city councilman, and A.J. McClung, a legend.
And Frank Chester.
Another city councilor. And you have obviously drawn somebody's attention with what you're doing in that candy store in a very short period of time. They asked you to run for city council, didn't they?
Yes. There was 2 neighbors of mine that first asked because it was a new district and they wanted someone grassroots. And I kept ignoring them and telling them, no, I'm staying with my candy store. And one of them asked me to go to church, and I went to a church off North Lumpkin Road, and I prayed about it. And I came back, and I did exactly what the preacher said. And I woke up the next morning, and I told my husband, I think I'm going to do this, but I probably won't win. I said, but I'm going to do it to be obedient. And then those awesome gentlemen walk into my candy store a couple of days later.
You probably were so naive, you didn't realize the power and the clout that those 4 men possessed, right?
That is so true. I was like, who the heck are them? What are they doing here?
Well, John Allen became Chief Superior Court Judge, trailblazer in the African-American community. Frank Chester was a city councilman and incredibly well-respected. A.J. McClung, there's a YMCA named after him, but he was mayor pro tem and became mayor when Jerry Allen died. And then Red McDaniel, I mean...
That's my buddy.
the city services center bears Red's name. You served with Red for a long time. But what'd you tell those guys?
When they first came to talk to me, that they were crazy, that I wasn't interested. That was it. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know anything about them. So the first thing, I'm Mimi. Mimi is Mimi. Mimi is what you get. This is what you see. This is what you get. I know when to be professional. I know when I can just be little. But these were strange men, coming into my business. I'd never seen them. I didn't know them. And they're talking to me about something that it was not on my to-do list. I was like, they crazy? What are they talking about? And I just didn't. I didn't believe it.
I always say people are not politicians, and they'll say they're not politicians. But once you put your name on that ballot and you pay that, $300 qualifying fee, you became a politician then, didn't you?
In people's eyes. In my eyes, I didn't. But in people's eyes, yes.
You were probably, let me say this nice. Don't get mad at me.
I know.
You've been mad at me before.
Nothing new.
We have a tortured relationship,
yes,
Mimi, going back to the newspaper days. Mm-hmm. But you just said you didn't think I liked you. And there were probably times I didn't like you, and there were probably times you didn't like me.
So true, but here we are together. I told you I'm a character when you get to know me.
Definitely. But, you probably were the most anti-politician that Columbus has ever produced. You were not, nobody would have looked at you and said, this is a person who needs to be on city council. This is a person who needs to be on the ballot. What made you so attractive to the voters of that district?
Well, what I've been told in in the past is that it was my passion for the kids, my passion for the things I was doing in my community, in the short time period that I was there. And also, Columbus was ready for diversity, something new. My community wanted someone grassroots. They didn't want a true politician. And I think that's what made them interested in me because they saw how I was. I was low key, but I was doing things. We were reforming gang members. We were giving kids a place to feel safe, to be able to talk their feelings, to learn how to talk to their parents. But you know, Chuck, you said something that's going to stay with me forever. I never looked at it, but you're right. It was almost like a boys and girls club.
I mean,
And I didn't never looked at it that way.
you were helping kids and parents that
Mhm.
needed help.
Yes. And I didn't even know it. I was having fun, with the kids and putting smiles and impacting them. And it's funny because sometimes I'll be at a store or when I used to work at TSIS, um, I remember one girl, she walked by my desk and she said to the other girl, you know what? That lady looks like the candy lady. And I just kept working. I didn't pay attention. And I heard her say, yeah, we used to hang out there all the time. We had a good time. But then she took a different career in life, so the candy store closed. But oh my God. And I'm sitting here behind my desk trying not to laugh or say anything. And I listened to her. And a couple of days later, she asked me, she says, you look so familiar. And she wasn't on my team, she was on somebody else's team. And I said, yeah, I remember you. She says, you remember me? I said, yeah, I'm Mimi from Kits and Things, the candy store. That girl screamed so loud, I was embarrassed.
Do you think one of the things that made you such an attractive political candidate and somebody who was able to get elected? How many people ran against you the first time?
Three people.
Do you remember who they were?
I remember one guy's name was Reggie Thompson. I don't remember the other guy, but I know one was Caucasian and he was born and raised in Columbus. The other one was African American and he was raised in Columbus. And little old me, Puerto Rican girl, not even 2 years in Columbus. And those were the three. And I remember that we only raised like less than $3,000, for the campaign.
Did you put out yard signs?
Oh yeah, we put yard signs.
Your yard sign color was always green, right?
Yes.
Why'd you pick green for your yard sign? I'm always curious about this because of who I'm married to and the yard sign. The way people do yard signs, once you settle on something, you stay with it in your political career.
To me, green is life, and it's like joy. Because when you look like at a flower and you look at it and you see the leaves and they're beautifully green and there's different kinds, what do? When you're riding in the summer and the leaves start green, it's just green to me. It's like a friendly, passionate, powerful color.
Okay, you get elected, you win this seat. How many people did you have pulling you in how many directions?
Oh my God. Lots of people. And they were pulling me because they wanted to know, who is this girl? Who is this person?
You had 1 of 10 votes.
Yes. Everyone was like, who is she? Where did she come from? What's her intent? Especially where I felt a little intimidated was in the business community. I really did because
you did not come out of the Columbus business community.
Yes.
The candy store was not a top chambers member, right?
That's right. And it was kind of intimidating for me when I was in the room with all these powerful people in the beginning. It was very intimidating, but I didn't show it, But
how did you mask that intimidation you felt?
I felt I was I walked in, I was very friendly, very understanding. I listened and I watched and then I studied. I studied the individuals that I was working with, what I was going to be working with and doing. This is a cute story. He's probably going to get mad at me for saying it, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is my favorite story. My first negotiation was really incredible to me. I was at the W.C. Bradley conference room in there, and the Olympics were coming to Columbus. And we were talking about all the different things that needed to build. But at that time, Rigdon Park was scheduled to get a new pool, to get remodeled. And
Rigdon Park is in Oakland Park.
In Oakland Park, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. And everyone was pushing the Olympics,
softball fields, yes. All that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there quietly going, no way. I have a park that needs to be a priority. And I think a couple people started picking it up, Cabeza, and others said I wasn't going to be that vote for yes, And they kept talking, and then Matt's with
former CEO of W.C. Bradley Real Estate.
Yes, he pulled me aside and he says, Mimi, what's the matter? And I can remember where we were even standing. And I said to him, sir, with all due respect, I really love your project, everybody's project, but I don't feel I can support it. And he asked me, he said, why? I said, because the people in my district been waiting for a park for a long time. And my understanding is if we do this, my park goes to the back burner. So why am I going to do that when my community really needs the park? And that was our first negotiation, because he said to me, Mimi, if I promise you that your park will not suffer, would you support it? I said, sure, but my park comes first. And that was my first negotiation.
And you got your park.
And I got my park.
You got your park with
yes.
water features in it?
Yes, everything. And it was so exciting. Matter of fact, I didn't believe it.
It was the best youth football field in the city for a while.
Yes. And when I went home to my husband and I was telling him, oh my God, I thought I was going to die. There's these powerful people and this guy, and I was able to save our park. I was like a little kid at Disney, I was so excited.
That story speaks volumes, because I was covering a lot of that stuff back then. I was wondering how that park got on the front burner. Now I know.
Yeah. This little quiet Puerto Rican girl negotiating for the first time.
But that was an important part of your public service, because you let the people in power and the people who had influence and affluence, you let them know you weren't going to back down if they didn't treat the people who sent you there well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Is that the message you were trying to send?
That was the message. Yes, it was. Because I feel like I was the voice of my community, those that felt that their voice didn't matter because they're not in public meetings, they're not involved in government, but yet their voice counted. And to me, the park was very important to my community, and I wanted their voice to be heard. And that was my first opportunity.
And Carmen Cabeza would not have been city manager then. He was head of Columbus 96, which was a local Olympic organizing committee.
Correct.
That was getting ready to build the softball complex, the Civic Center, redo Golden Park, and everything it took to host the softball venue. But you wanted a park.
But I wanted a park.
And
in Oakland Park.
And when they tore down the golf course,
yes.
You protected that tree too, didn't you?
Yes.
If you go in the Civic Center parking lot now, over by, sorry, I didn't mean to say tree.
That's
tree.
okay.
Okay. You go in the Civic Center parking lot, and there's this tree just below Memorial Park on the riverside. It's fenced in. You wouldn't let them. That was a part of the old Victory Drive golf course, which was
right.
leveled to build that. You weren't going to let that tree go, were you?
No.
Why did you like that tree so much? I know it's a beautiful old oak.
Just because the principle of it belonged to our community. It belonged to the people. I'm a nature person. I like to, make a basket and sit under a tree, and have lunch or sit and read a book. So the tree was very valuable to us. It's nature. It's who it represents us, our community. I just couldn't see it.
Another
Sorry.
another another part of that negotiation was the Oxbow Meadows Golf Course. They were getting
That's
rid of
right.
Victory Drive. You demanded they replace it with a South Columbus public golf course, and so you got the nine. You know what I always thought
Oh
interesting.
my God, you remember more things than I do. I know I'm getting old, but it's true.
You know what I always thought interesting was you wanted the golf course, and Red McDaniel wanted the marina.
Mm-hmm.
You got the golf course. Red never got his marina, did he?
No, he didn't.
He wanted a marina down there, sort of where Oxbow Meadows is, and
Yes.
so people could put in south of all the dams and have boats and go into Lake Eufaula from there.
And we did get some. We did get some land right outside of Fort Benning on the South Lumpkin Road, right there on the edge in the corner where Westville is now, and
Yep.
where that land there we had purchased that land to try to make the marina in that area, but it was very difficult to get all the buy-ins and everything. But we even said that if the marina was ever built there, it would be called the Red McDaniel Marina
No.
because we were always, he was marina and I was golf course. And I don't even play golf.
You fought for it. I'm going to
Listen.
hijack the interview and go in a different direction right now. I'm
That makes me nervous.
Anytime I say that as a reporter, I'm sure it does. But what I want to do is I'm going to say names, and I want you just to tell me the first thing that pops into your head about those names. And I'm going to go through probably 15 of them.
Okay.
And I'm going to start with Evelyn Turner Pugh.
Oh, you're going to make me cry. Evelyn was my mentor. I'm going to say she taught me a lot of what I know. She empowered me. She allowed me the opportunity to shadow her to GMA, League of Cities, all these places to educate myself and
She
to
took you
learn.
under her wing when you
Yes.
when you got elected.
Yes, she did. And she allowed me to, and then she let me explore, what the things that she had taught me. And then she would always say to me, follow your heart. Don't be afraid. She would always tell me that. And, I can tell so many stories about Evelyn and I and our travels and working and, but she was special to me.
Rest her soul.
Yes.
Red McDaniel.
I love Red.
Red was a country club guy. He couldn't have been more different than you.
Oh, yes. And that was what was great about Red. That's what I loved about Red. You always knew where Red stand. You didn't have to guess. You didn't have to figure it out. He was straightforward. And his affection to me was always hidden in the back of my chair. That was his affection to me. And when he didn't like something I was doing, he would go, Mammy. I said, oh, Lord, I'm in trouble. It's just that southern way he would say, Mammy. I was like, okay, here it comes.
He was an old football star here.
Yes.
I mean, Red was a character.
Oh, yeah, and he was. But he was, I've always appreciated him since he walked through the doors of my candy store. He was always straightforward, and every negative I would put, he would turn it around into a positive. And that's when I learned. And I try to teach people from every negative, there's a positive. And Red McDaniel installed that in me.
Red, my favorite story, I was covering the Parks and Rec scandal and was breaking a lot of stories back in
Yes.
2011. And very difficult time for some of the people in city stuff. And I was trying to get a report, and I was being told you won't get it till after it's presented to council. And with the people who told me that standing there, Red walked up and gave it to me. And I looked up and said, "Thanks, sir." And, he said, "He's entitled to it. Give it to him, and let him see it." And, I always had great respect for Red, just as you do. Bobby Peters.
Oh, that's my buddy.
He became the mayor at the same time you came in.
Yes, yes.
Why do you call him your buddy?
Because I feel that he made me feel very comfortable in my seat. He always kept not only me, but all of us informed. Anytime something happened, we immediately knew about it. Even when things would get rough and I would be like, oh, I'm done. I'm giving. He would always say, you're not done yet. Your purpose is not over. And he would kind of give me that encouragement, that sense of relief. I say, okay, I'm getting out here. I'm getting there. And he always would, and he used to on my leg, he would hit me like, okay, you're getting too loud. Or I always knew there was, okay, I'm doing something wrong. Or he'll hit my chair on the side and I'll be like, I would look at him like, are you crazy? Are you serious? I'm mad. But he would always calm me down.
Isaiah Hughley.
Oh, Isaiah is a amazing guy. We don't always agree, but we respect each other's opinion, and we've had a very good relationship. He's always, there's something about me. I'm very strong when it comes to my work ethics, my politics, my career. I'm very strong. But in my personal life, I'm very shy and very timid, and I don't see in myself what other people see in me. And when he would see me and he would think that, okay, she's going the wrong way, he would always encourage me. He would say to me, you see what we just did? Did you see what you did? He would keep me, he would keep me afloat. That's what he did.
Carmen Cavesa.
Oh, that was my military boss.
You were enlisted. He was a 3-star general. Could
Yes.
you ever get over looking at him through the lens of the military?
No. And he would tell me that all the time. He would say, Mimi, stop. And I would yes, sir. Anything else, sir? And at times I would even stand at attention and parade rest. And he would tell me, could you please stop that? Yes.
So you were one of the people, and I know others like Rufus Riggs, Dick McKee, others that had military background looked at Carmen the same. It was hard for you, if you had served in the Army, not to look at Carmen as a person of authority, because he was a retired 3-star general, right?
That is so correct. Yes. Even till today, it's the same way. If I was to get near him, I would probably go in attention. Even though we're friendly talking, I would probably stand real straight, my arms down. It's just that sense of respect.
Is that a respect for him or respect for the organization?
I would say for him as a veteran, I would say. And the organization too, but mainly for him. He was a leader. He was a general. He instilled the values of the military in us.
As somebody who rose to the highest ranks of the United States Army and then came back and commanded volunteers, commanded city employees, what did you think about the way he was able to transition into civilian life?
I was jealous. I wish I could have transitioned just like him. He did it smoothly. He did it awesome.
Why was he able to do that?
I think it was his personality. When he didn't have that general hat on and he was a civilian, he was very approachable. He was an approachable person. And I think that's what made him so unique. And he was able to bring people together. People that would normally won't come to the same table, he was able to bring them there.
And y'all had a little bit of that New York thing going on too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did. And that little Latino, Latin, Italian thing going. Yes, we had that. That was a good relationship between us two.
Bob Portachef.
Bob was a handful, but he was amazing. He would make you. Bob walked into the room, and you can be sad, you can be in another world, and instantly you're happy and you're ready to talk and join his bandwagon to whatever he was gonna do. That was part of the show.
So what kind of leader was Bob? Bob had the military background too, but he also had the JAG and he had the banking. I mean, but Bob was every bit a New Yorker.
Oh, yes, he was. And he didn't hide it. He didn't hide it. Actually, he would make me feel comfortable. And because sometimes I would tell people and they would say, stop saying that. Because sometimes I would say, I'm the ghetto girl from council. And him and some other people say it, stop saying that. But when I would see him, I said, oh, I'm fine. If he's doing his New Yorker thing, I can do my little ghetto thing. I'm good. So that was fun. He was fun. And he knew how to bring people together, too. I just feel so blessed that the people that have been around me encouraged me in their own way, watching them and being a part of them helped me to who I am today, to be honest.
Richard Smith. You served with him on council before he got in the General
Yes.
Assembly.
You know, I used to be scared of Richard in the beginning because Richard was always so serious. In the beginning, I used to be like, oh, I better stay away from him. Oh, no.
But y'all became buddies, right?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Richard was very sweet. He would help me. You know, if I had a question about something and I wasn't sure about it, and he would come to me and he says, Mimi, do you understand that? Let me show you it in this viewpoint. And that's what made the friendship, that he would guide me sometimes and say, look at this. But this is one thing I have to say, Richard. Richard never tried to influence me, to vote this way or that way.
He didn't come say you should vote this way. He gave you reasons, but
he never did. And he said, whatever you decide, it's okay.
Okay, I'm going to put the next two together, and you'll understand why I want to do it.
Okay.
Gary Allen and Skip Henderson. You've been on council with both of them most of the time.
Yes.
Skip is mayor now. But, they kind of come out of the same Red McDaniel longtime government. But Gary and Skip, should I put them together or should I have done them together?
I think they're two amazing individuals that have done a lot for our community and really care. When we talk about diversity, I would say that they work real hard in ensuring diversity. They're very, I don't know. Alan and I, we always joke like he was my council husband because he would be like Bobby. After Bobby left, he would be like, calm down.
Y'all were seatmates, right?
Yes. He would say, calm down. Look, I need you to look at this like this. And I'm like, no, Gary, it's not like that. It's like this. So we would have like your little husband and wife little debates. But I've always admired Gary because he's always respected my decisions.
If you're listening to this at home right now, you're thinking, okay, 6 votes, and this is how the city of Columbus is governed. You're going, oh, my God. No, but this is such an honest exit interview, and this is an exit interview.
Oh, yeah, I would have told you none of that before then. I can promise you that. No.
Oh, man.
I'm on my way out, so it's easier. But I got to watch it because there's some things I want to do, and I can't burn some bridges now.
I want to talk a little bit about a couple of things at the end. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do now that you're 65, you're a grandmom? What are you going to do?
Well, I hope to, I've always loved to travel, but I would love to do some traveling and spend more time with my family because 28 years of community service, working a full-time job at TSIS, counts as a full-time job. even though it's considered part-time, it's a full-time job, and taking care of my mother, and being a single mom. Um, it was very tough on my family, but they all supported me. And there were some things that I wasn't able to be there for my kids and do for them. So I can't make up for the past, but I can look at the future. And I like to be there more for my grandkids. Things that I might have missed out for my children, I want to be there for my grandchildren. And then all the things that I have learned and experienced, good and bad. I'm a person that somebody said it to me earlier today. I love to empower people. I like to put smiles on people. I like to prove to people you can do this. So I want to work closely in the Latino community on some projects to get them more, to have more trust in our community, to be more involved in the different programs that there are in the community. Nothing like political, anything like that. It's just that we came to Columbus because we love the atmosphere of Columbus. We like the South. This is our home, and we need to be more involved in our community.
Probably the toughest question I'm going to ask you during this whole interview. Columbus has had crime problems. South Columbus and your district in particular have had way too many homicides. Why have the murders, the gun violence, why has it continued, and how can you stop it?
Well, you know what, Chuck, I ask that question every day. And there are nights I go to sleep crying, wondering what is happening. But society has changed. There's less value for life now. People are more, how can I say this without offending? But I just feel like we're losing a sense of life's value. When we would disagree and I was coming out, we would go outside and we box it out. We fought it. Now people just want to shoot. You know, domestic violence is so high right now, and I wish we had that crystal ball, you know, on how to fix it. There's a lot of things that we're doing to try to fix it, but not one person can do it. It has to take everybody.
And in the last year, some of those homicides have been right around the corner from your house in Oakland Park.
Yes, and that's been very, you know, devastating, but I'm still not giving up in my community. You know, we don't know. Hey, let me give you some analogy that I noticed that I've seen somebody post some things on Facebook, and not mentioning no names, but I learned of a story of a young man that was with his wife, in love. They thought they had everything in the world and everything was going well, and one day she commits suicide. And the thought behind the person's, why didn't I see that? We can't predict what someone's feeling inside in the future. Because if we could stop a lot of the violence. But what we need to do is embrace each other, listen to each other, because I might be crying out to you, but because I'm smiling and I'm walking and I'm moving, you don't know I'm hurting. And I say that because as I'm exiting out, I'm seeing people, I'm talking to people, even within myself. Sometimes I say, oh my God, I know you have a new journey for me, but what is it? I'm afraid. But if you look at me, you don't know I'm afraid because I'm smiling, I'm laughing.
You're masking.
Yeah. Yeah.
People mask their pain a lot.
Yes, yes. And that's why we need to work more together to get our families to understand what they're going through. I don't know if I answered it.
Oh, you did.
But
I think you did. I think you did very well. Last thing I want to talk about is family. I want to spin this back to where we started the interview. Your mom passed away when of Alzheimer's?
November 29th, 20.
So 2 years ago. Your mom had a 12-year battle with Alzheimer's.
Yes.
You walked all 12 years with her as her primary caregiver.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was incredibly important for you, wasn't it?
Yes, my mother gave me her all. And with our family values, it was my right and my privilege and my honor to give her all my own. It really was. My mom, when I was young and in the military and had a family, my mom would go to every duty station I was at. My mom would meet my neighbors while I'm processing in and getting housing. My mother would meet all my neighbors. She would interview the babysitters. She would help us unpack. And then after she saw we were all settled in, she would leave. My mom, even when I did, the politics, at first she was completely against it. But then she said, do it and do it right. And remember who you are and where you came from. God has given you a mission and you must complete it. My mom was my biggest cheerleader, and we fought. Oh, trust me, we fought like cats and dogs because she would tell me at time, she would say, you dress like an old woman and I dress like you. Put on some makeup, do this. And I'm like, I don't like makeup. So we had our differences, but at the end of the day, she was my hero. She was my friend. She was my sister. And she was my mom.
Are you a lot like your mom?
My family tells me yes.
Is that a good thing?
Yes, I'm proud. I'm proud of it because my mom was known in Oakland Park, in her neighborhood, because she had her own house in Oakland Park before she got sick. And she was like that neighborhood mom. She would cook for her neighbors, and she had a beautiful garden. And every Sunday we would go to her house, my brother and I, and we would have dinner. But after we left, the neighborhood would go in and have dinner with her. She didn't allow them when we were there, but after we left, she would have her own little get-togethers with the neighborhood. And it was hard. It was very hard being a single mom, working at TSIS, counsel, and taking care of her. But you know what, Chuck? I would never change any of it. I never would. The only thing I that it hurts me is that I didn't have the power to help her. That I had to see her slowly disappear before my eyes. That was the hardest.
And that's the
thing.
curse of Alzheimer's, isn't it?
That's the curse. That's the curse right there. That you see the person you love, and you can't do anything but just love them. And I feel lost, Chuck, without her.
2 years?
And I still feel lost. It's like yesterday. Because who do I run to? Who do I lay on her lap and cry and say, oh, Mom, this happened. How do I do it? And she would say, cry, you're done, get up. Go face it.
Is that the Puerto Rican heritage, the toughness? There's a mental toughness that comes from people from that island.
Yes, it is. Yes. It is something that I wish I can put it better than I saw a video on that a person put it. We're a community that we can fall to the end of the pit, the darkest of the pig, the whale, whatever you want to call it. And we might cry, but then we get up, and we get up with power and life to celebrate that we came out of this situation to the beauty of life. And that's what I feel as a Puerto Rican I bring. It doesn't matter how low you fall. You just have to believe in God and yourself, and you become victorious. Because when you sit back and you look at it, you can laugh and say, wow, I was that low and I made it to here. It's unbelievable. And that's how I look at my 28 years of journey.
This week, when you walked out of that city council meeting for the last time as a city councilor, did you feel victorious?
I feel honored and humble that God allowed me to serve his people. I really did. That's how I walked out of there. When I was walking out, I just said, thank you. Thank you for choosing me. Because he could have chose anybody else, but he chose me.
He chose the Puerto Rican lady from the candy store.
Yes. And to me, that's a great honor. And I will always appreciate it and continue to be humble and continue to walk in whatever he has in store for me. I pray every day and I say, God, okay, what's next? What's next? Because somebody did this to me and it's really funny is because someone told me, Mimi, you decided to run in the summertime around July. Your district is 7. You are your 7th term. You retired from TSIS on the 7th, and this is, so they said 7th in the Bible is completion. And so whatever God wanted you to do, you have completed it. And that's what I feel so proud about, that I was able to complete his mission to teach people that if you believe in yourself and in him, anything's possible. Because look at this pretty little Puerto Rican girl. What the heck? In Georgia, 2 years, Jesus Christ. 20 years later, 5 mayors, 5 city managers, presidents. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I don't believe it still.
You
honestly.
lived it.
But I still don't believe it at times. I'm like, did I really do that? Did I really?
As somebody who's been documenting it for 25 years, you did. I can say that. Wow, you made me cry. You shouldn't have done that to me.
I'm sorry. You made me cry. So that's called Even Stevens.
Well, thank you for listening to this edition of the Chuck Williams Show. Our guest has been Mimi Woodson. Mimi's completed 28 years of public service, city councilor, District 7 here in Columbus. It is an amazing story. It is a truly amazing story.
And still, it's still like Isaiah is the one that always tells me, you don't even know what you have done. You don't even see it, and he tells me all the time. And the truth is, Chuck, I really don't. And these past few days when people are like kind of reminding me, I'm like, wow, that really happened. It's just because the military and my parents taught me, you do something, you finish it, and you walk away and don't look back. And that's how my whole life's been. And to even things you said to me today, I was like, oh, holy, yeah, that is true. And it's amazing. And I thank you. I thank you. And I thank all the citizens who have faith in me. And, even people that were not in my district that would encourage me. I'm just overwhelmed with joy.
I'm going to do the last thing, then we're getting out of here. I know Lewis is looking at me like, whoa, this is taking longer than we thought.
Sorry, Lewis. You got 2 talkative people.
I'm going to do what I call turn the table. I've been asking you questions for 20 plus years now. You get to ask me a question.
Why do you do what you do, Chuck?
Same reason you do. I care about it. I do it because it's something I enjoy.
What do you enjoy about it?
I enjoy stories. I think it's a privilege to be able to have somebody like you open up and tell me their story, because there's power in stories. There's lessons in stories. I mean, there's an hour's worth of lesson right here on this whole podcast. Your story is a lesson, and that's why I do it.
And that's why God gave you that mission, like he gave me the mission for 28 years. And your mission is to do that. Tell people's story, because everybody don't tell their story.
Not all stories are good stories.
But they're stories. And it has to come, the good and the bad comes together to a better tomorrow. Because without the bad, we wouldn't do the good.
Amen. Well, we need to end this now. Our guest has been Mimi Woodson, District 7 counselor. We hope you'll come back again next time for another edition of The Chuck Williams Show. The Chuck Williams Show airs on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 on WRBL.com. It's also available on your favorite podcast format, iHeart, Spotify, and Apple. Social media, yeah, we're there too. You can get me on Twitter at Chuck Williams, Facebook, Chuck Williams WRBL, Instagram, Chuck Williams 0999.